What if the biggest thing standing between you and the life you want is your mindset around money? Today on Life's Next Lesson Plan, I'm joined by Rebekah Kiger, a powerhouse money mindset coach and trauma-informed mentor who went from living in generational poverty to becoming a leader, helping women rewrite their financial futures. Now, Rebekah uses her signature Align method to help women let go of limiting beliefs, step into abundance, and create wealth without burnout. If you've ever felt stuck, scared to take the leap, or unsure how to break free from old money stories, you're not alone. This episode is for you. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Life's Next Lesson Plan. I'm Rachel, and I started this podcast during my 29th and last year as a high school teacher. The goal of my work with Life's Next Lesson Plan, as well as my Live and Learn Patreon, is to create a connection where we are all teachers. We all have lessons and stories to share that can help others. I'm so fortunate to be able to extend the four walls of my previous classroom to an unlimited audience, where we can all learn from each other. And my guests are some of the most inspirational people with the best stories and lessons I know, which is why I want to share them with you. Their words are something everyone should hear. It is my hope that you are able to take away something from each episode to apply to your own life, whether that be a career search, path to a more fulfilling life, or new ideas on current topics. I'm so happy to introduce to you my guest today, Rebekah Kiger. It's another person I have not met in person, but have been following and feel a connection to. I had actually heard Rebekah speak on another podcast, and she is a trauma-informed money mindset coach. And when I listened to her story, I was like, whoa, okay, I have a lot of connections from what she'll share with you about her childhood and just kind of growing up in that sort of scarcity mindset of like, where's the next dollar coming from? And I could relate a lot to that. And then just sort of how she met her mentor and had kind of a complete mindset shift that sort of changed the trajectory of her life. And a lot of you who are listening are sort of going through that, like, I'm in my comfort zone and I'm not sure, what it looks like on the other side, and, very worried about money and just stability that you've had in your career. And I have to say, I had already made my decision to leave education after 29 years when I came across Rebekah, but I kept getting, after I had made that decision, sort of all these confirmations of like, even though it was a risky decision, this is right and it's going to be okay. And so I knew that I had to share Rebekah's story with you. And so I'm going to let her introduce herself and start to talk a little bit about some of these, what I was talking about, similarities in her childhood. And she just has such a remarkable story. So welcome, Rebekah. Thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to dive in.
Great. So yes, if you could just start us a little bit from the beginning, a little bit of your life story and, kind of talking about that mentor that you had. I think we talk about mentors here a lot, and maybe not at the time, we don't realize it, but looking back, you're like, that was a pivotal moment for me, and that person really changed the course of my life.
Yeah, 1000%. So, just to kind of reiterate, so I'm a master mindset and money coach with 18 years experience helping people reach their financial goals. And so a lot of people will look at me now and be like, oh, this is all easy for you and it's easy for you to say, and right, all of those kinds of things being in the role that I'm in now. But it definitely wasn't always this way. And so to your point, I grew up below the poverty line. My mom was a single mom with 7 children. So there was 7 of us, and we lived on government assistance. My mom didn't work because she had to take care of us and would have had to pay a lot more money, right, to send us all to daycare or different things. And so it was very scarce. And there were a lot of times that we weren't sure if we would have a roof over our head, right? And so that led me to repeating some of those same patterns. I got pregnant at 17. I had my daughter at 18, and I started going to work because I knew college wasn't an option for me. I was also on government assistance, and I was just, hey, whatever I needed to do to make a life for my daughter. I knew that I wanted more for her than what I was given because, I mean, obviously that's all my mom could do, but I knew that I wanted more. I just had no idea what that looked like. And so I started working, as fate would have it, in the banking world, making pretty close to minimum wage at the time. I found my pay stub not that long ago, and I made $9,000 in my very first year with the baby at home. Yeah, I know. So, looking back, I'm like, it's one of those periods of time, and for anyone who's listening, you probably look back on your life and like, I don't know how I got through that. I don't know what happened there, but I did. And that's kind of the period that I was in at the time. And so I got on the corporate hamster wheel. I knew that working hard, the only thing I did learn about money is working hard would make more, I would be able to make more of it, right? So as long as I worked hard, and I was like, I'll do anything. So I worked as hard as I possibly could. I was working 60 plus hours a week and just grinding, just hustling, but just learning. I was kind of that sponge where anyone that was willing to teach me, I was open to it. I'm like, tell me what to do. I'll do this. And that's about the time, maybe 5 years or so into my career. So I would have been early 20s. I was making about $50,000 or $60,000 a year at the time. And I really thought that I had made it because genuinely where I came from, that is a lot of money. It's one of the, honestly, one of the most poverty stricken areas in the country, in the US here. So that was a lot of money. And that was I felt like I made it. And that's about the time that my mentor came into my life and that we were talking about. And he saw more in me than I saw in myself. And he was making multiple six figures at the time, working, maybe 20 hours a week or so. And I didn't see that that was possible for me, but I saw that but I saw that it was possible, right? I saw that it was possible for him. I'm like, okay, well, I guess if one person can do it, then I can do it too. But I kind of borrowed his belief during that period of time because I remember he asked me a question, which was really what opened my eyes to a lot of this, which was, if you could make any amount of money in the world, what would that be? And to that point, you have to imagine growing up the way we did, Rachel, right? I didn't know that I had a say. And so when he asked the question, I was like, what do you mean? I kind of was, number one, confused, but then number two, almost offended because I'm like, you don't know what I've been through to get to where I am. And basically what I thought he was saying was that, it's not enough. And that was the story of my life to that point. So I had always felt like it wasn't enough and I wasn't enough, right? From a lot of the stories I carried from childhood. So after lowballing him for a little bit, I came up with a number of $100,000 because I just figured, whatever, I don't know. It's a round number. Sure, I'll make $100,000. I didn't really have a ton of belief in myself, but I just borrowed his belief for that period of time. And it was about 9 months later that I had hit my first six-figure year. And I'll never forget that day because it's burned into my memory of seeing the pay stub where that was that six-figure mark. And that's really when things shifted for me. And I started realizing that I do have a say in this. And I never knew that before. I didn't know that I could co-create this reality. And so, from that point, I went on to continue co-creating my reality. I was one of the top sales producers. I became a financial advisor later on, got all my licenses and started helping people in a more significant way. And became one of the top in my region and in the banking channel where I worked for many, many years. I had made a lot of money during that period of time. And about a decade or so into my career, I was at another crossroads. So I'm happy to pause because I know I've kind of been going, I don't know if you have any clarifying questions from here, but I could definitely continue on if there's any, thing else that you want to kind of clarify.
Yeah. How, with your mentor, obviously it started with him showing this belief that there was more, right? Did you work with this person? Were there, was there meetings or, did you just put in more hours? How did that look?
Yeah, great question. So he was my boss at the time. And so he was a financial advisor and he came into my world. I was a licensed banker, I want to say at the time. So I had some licenses to basically offer some additional solutions. So basically, if you came into the bank, let's say you had, $500,000 with the bank, I was the person that they would, oh, would you like to go talk to our person about making more money on your money, right? So I was kind of that person. And he was financial advisor, and he came in as not in a, he wasn't my boss, but he was kind of like a supervisory role. And so what we did, he was responsible for mentoring me and helping me become the best licensed banker / eventually financial advisor. But I've had a lot of those in the past, and not, and I mean this with love, but none of them were him, right? It's like there's a lot of people, just like in really any industry. And I've heard this quite a bit, is like, you're only as good as the person that you learned from or your mentor. And that was very much the case. That still is very much the case in this specific industry. And so I really just got super blessed. It was definitely divinely guided that he was the one to come in and really teach me he showed me the ropes and taught me how to do this, how to do it well. So we would meet probably about weekly from that point forward. We just, like I said, set a goal of 100,000. We got to work. We started, just working with clients. And I mean, really what that $100,000 represents is, of course, a manifestation on my end, but then it was all of the people that I had helped. I had helped a significant amount of people in order to make that money to get to where they wanted to be and to retire early or to save money on, debt and things like that. So it was definitely a ripple effect of the people that I had helped that got me there.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So how long did you work with him and stay in banking? Because I'm assuming now that you have your own gig, was that the crossroads you're talking about, or did that come later?
Yeah, so we worked together for many years after that. And then as the banking channel does, things change quite a bit. So the bank that I was working for got bought out. I've lost how many times while I was there. It just kept getting turned over and turned over and turned over. And eventually I just knew that wasn't a way to establish long-term clientele. My sights were still set on being a financial advisor for the rest of my life. I was like, this is a great living. I can do this forever. And I love helping people in that way. And then like I said, about 10 years in, I was no longer working with him. He had gone off to start his own financial advising practice here in Pittsburgh. And then I was working for another very large firm in the area. And my boss was he sat me down, a different boss, and we were doing a performance review. And this is kind of like the nail in the coffin for me. I had just made the bank so much money at the time, and I had just hit my largest bonus ever, which was almost a 6-figure month that I had had because of this bonus and the different work that I had done. And my boss sat me down and was like, okay, let's review your numbers. You did a great job, but they don't care about what you did yesterday. They don't care about what you did last week or last month, and definitely not last year. So what's in your pipeline now? And I was just like an out of body experience of like, because you have to imagine at this point, I was giving 60 hours a week. And for probably, a decade, I was missing events with my daughter because I was a single mom. It's a woman, I'm a woman in this industry, which is a very male dominated industry. I was whipping all of their butts, right? Like in terms of numbers and things like that. And so I'd given everything I possibly could to this corporation. And then for my boss to say, basically, again, it's not enough, really was in that moment. I was like, we're done. Like, I can't do this. I physically don't know what else I'm going to do, but I won't do this. Mm-hmm. And that's about the time when, again, as fate would have it, I was introduced to the personal development industry and coaching and this online space that I didn't know existed. And so I made the decision in the moment that I was not going to do this any longer. And it probably was about 6 months or so later that I walked back into that same boss's office and I quit. And I know I was so happy to do it. And then I started my financial coaching business and money mindset business. And things have been incredible ever since. I learned a lot No one told me I was going to take all of those scarcity programs and all the things that I had from working in the corporate world into this. And so I had a lot to learn, but I'm so glad that I did it in the way that I did. And now I help women to expand, or individuals in general, to expand their capacity to receive, so that they're able to go out and live their dreams as well, and make that transition if they want, because it is possible, even though it can be viewed as very, difficult and scary. It's absolutely possible.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It resonates with me so much. And I love, for today's lesson, I know you're going to share eventually with us your kind of method that you have trademarked. But something you said about, in your mind that day, you were like, no, this will not continue. And then you sort of, and I did this probably for 2 to 3 years of just like, what else is out there, experimenting with other things, watching what other people who had transitioned from education were doing. And it was like, you have sort of a foot in each area where your foot is still in the stability, but then you're sort of getting ready to step out. And I kept applying and applying, and, I was nearing 50, and I underestimated how difficult it was going to be hired as a 50-year-old, right? Because that's a gamble. First of all, they expect that they think you expect all this money, even though I knew in my mind I was willing to take less just for a different path. And also, I think, you're near retirement, and so do they want to invest in you? But what happened with me during that 2 to 3 year period was just, I knew I had something to fall back on that was safe. And what changed for me last fall when I made the decision was, I knew enough about myself and looking back on those 2 to 3 years, that if I didn't make the decision before I was ready, I would continue to fall back into that stability. And so I just knew I had to do it. Didn't have a plan. And I knew, though, if my back was against the wall, right? Like, we are survivors, and so we will figure it out. And it forces you to become creative and think outside of the box. And I just last week accepted my position outside of education. It was not a posted job. I'm going to explain more about this. I've, talked about it a little bit, but I'll be explaining to the listeners more. But it was not a posted job. Someone had said, you have this skill, this skill, this skill. Go to this company. I bet they're looking for someone like you. Sure enough, they were like, we've been talking about this for 2 to 3 years, but we needed someone with your background. Boom.
Wow.
I would have never done that, though, unless my back was against the wall. And I think it's a lot of what you're talking about, too, where it's like you're operating from a different mindset. You're putting something out into the world like, no, I really need to make something happen, right? I don't have a fallback. And so you get creative and you uncover every stone you can. And I think that's what I like, too, about your story of like, you knew in that moment, this is it. And I will find something and I will make it happen. And that's what I really like about your story as well.
Thank you. And I think it's just a decision, right? The root word of the Latin word, which is the root of the word decision, means to cut off all other options. When you make a decision and a declaration to the universe or to God or whatever your belief system is, it's a very powerful thing, because it's one of those things that's like, I'm going to do this. And you, therefore, right, you cut off the other options. And sometimes we do need to make that kind of declaration in order for things to change. I think that people often think that the outside is going to change first, and that's going to be the thing that shifts, when in all reality, it's not. It's us that's going to create the outside. Essentially, that it's we have to change first, and then the reflection of what it is that we're getting in the outside world is going to follow. But it's not the other way around.
Right. And I never, I heard stories like this, and I love the podcast, how I built this. or How I Built That. I can't remember what it is, but it's all these amazing entrepreneurial stories, even, Sarah Blakely and Kate Spade and, all these people who were like, I had no other choice. I was doing this out of my living room. I was eating, ramen noodles, and you're like, okay, but does it really happen that way? And it does once you shift and put that energy out there. And now that I'm living it again, I wouldn't have believed that it could happen to me until it started to happen. And so I love hearing stories like that because, yes, it's scary. Yes, it's a huge gamble. But instead of waking up every day scared or what if, instead I used that energy to how, and let's try this and let's try that. And there was a ton of rejection and a ton of dead ends. But, every no was eventually leading me to the yes. But, I think it's hard for a lot of people. And again, I couldn't have done it. My daughter's getting ready to go to college, and I couldn't have done it when she was younger, financially. But when you are able to do that, and you just have to, like you said, decide. I love that. I didn't know that. Even being an English teacher, I didn't know that root of that word. That's fascinating. Yeah. So I'd love for you to share. I know I will put all of your contact information in the show notes and your website and everything where they can look into you a little bit more and follow you like I did. But I'm really excited for you to share this process that I think you said came to you like in a meditation or something. I love that because I do my best thinking when I'm just like driving or in the shower, resting my mind. And it's like, okay, you're not supposed to be having all these ingenious ideas, but I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and just real quick before we go into that, I want to talk about you had mentioned the what if conversation, and you are shifting that to how. And one of the things that I started doing too, if someone's listening, because I just feel pulled to say this, if you're playing the what if game on the negative side, what if this doesn't work? What if I fail? Then it's really important to also play that on the other side. If you're going to play it on both sides. What if this actually works? What if people love what I do? What if this changes my whole life? What if this has a massive ripple effect in the world? What if it's the best thing I ever did? So just felt pulled to say that. I think if we're going to play that game, it's really important to play it on both sides. And because that's what opens up the possibility of, okay, now we have a part of our brain that starts to, the reticular activating system, when we start to really see these possible timelines, which is what my mentor kind of helped me to start to create, was what if any kind of amount of money was possible for you? What would that look like? So we oftentimes play it on the negative side. So I'll go into the method now.
Yeah, no, I thought what you said is kind of like, again, how if you're brought up in that scarcity environment, right?
Yeah.
You automatically do. And our brains are, research shows, negatively wired. And so I love that you bring that up because I did start to do that. Like, this is going to work out. Because if I didn't say that, then what was the alternative, right? So yeah, I love, because again, it's that energy that you're putting out there. And what you put out into the universe and what you say to yourself in your mind over and over, eventually, which I didn't believe, but now do, becomes truth. So yes, thank you for mentioning that. Before we get into Rebekah's amazing lesson, we're going to take a short break for our ads and Ask the Teacher Anything. 100% of men and women have hormones. And with the increased presence of processed foods and environmental toxins, it's more important than ever to make mindful choices in the products we use every day. That's why I trust Hue and Grace, high-performing, clean products designed to support hormone health while reducing exposure to harmful chemicals. Because this topic has been my primary focus since ending birth control in 2024 in an attempt to regulate my changing midlife hormones, after making healthy swaps in my diet, personal care products, and exercise routine, I've been able to lower my dose of anxiety medication I once relied very heavily on, and have restored balance to my nervous system and cleared up the brain fog I was experiencing in perimenopause. Hue & Grace has played a key role in this transformation, offering safe, effective, non-toxic solutions that support my wellness journey. If you listened to episode 16 with certified Mayo Clinic health and wellness coach Tracy Danielson Mitchell, you heard her talk about the importance of hormone health. To share with you everything I did throughout my journey to balance my hormones, I did a deep dive on my Live and Learn Patreon about all of the tests and supplements that I use in order to navigate this journey in my 50s. To find this episode, you can just visit patreon.com/liveandlearn. Some of my favorite products I use every day include Hue & Grace's Hydrate and Detox that contains powerful antioxidants, electrolytes, and prebiotic fiber. Their popular blue drink you see me drinking on Instagram is their Triple Boost Hormone Support Protein Powder with blue spirulina that I mix with their daily collagen supplement. I also keep my skin hydrated and smooth with their spray-on body oil. I love putting this on before going out, and it gives my aging skin a more dewy look. I've also switched out my hair care products to Hue & Grace's Your Best Hair Day line, with all natural ingredients that help nourish my hair and stretch out time between washes. If you're on this journey with me and are interested in exploring Hue & Grace's trusted non-toxic products, for 10% off and free shipping, you can use my discount link at hueandgrace.com/lessonplan and reach out anytime via email at nextlessonplan@gmail.com with questions. Live and learn with me as we focus on living fully and feeling our best. Visit hueandgrace.com/lessonplan to see how easy it is to start making some healthy swaps on your way to non-toxic living. To those of you who have followed me for a while, you know that I value mental and physical wellness. Personally, I've worked with a few different coaches over the years and even been one myself. If you are looking for education and support in your own wellness journey, I would love to invite you to the wellness community I am currently in that keeps me accountable daily with my nutrition and movement. If you are a Facebook user, you can search for our free group called Team MG. This group is led by my coach, Megan Grimord, who is a certified trainer and nutrition coach. She offers lots of education and support for your wellness journey. If you want to get to know Coach Megan more, you can follow her on Instagram at all lowercase Megan, MEGAN _Grimord, GRIMORD, or even listen to her on episode 10 of the podcast. She has also created a discount code for my listeners. Just go to her website, www.team-mg.com, and enter code LessonPlan10 to get $10 off any of her premium coaching packages for the first month. Coach Megan is a busy mom like me who works full-time, so I appreciate her practicality mixed with some tough love to keep me going. Question number 1 for Ask the Teacher Anything today is, are there any books, tools, or resources you recommend for personal growth and for fulfillment? Whew, so many, but I'll try to narrow it down. Some of my favorite books are The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. That definitely helped me a lot. I would say Atomic Habits by James Clear. Also, great book. As far as tools and resources, I mean, YouTube is great. You can find just about anything on any topic that you need there. But more specifically, if there's something that you want to do, like when I wanted to start a podcast, I found someone whose podcast I admired, who had an online course, and I signed up and took that course. So, in the age now of everybody designing online courses, that is much easier to do, whether that's attending, a free webinar. Like I know my past podcast guest, Michael Hernandez, is having a webinar on if you want to publish a book. There's just about anything out there. If you want to do it, you can invest a little bit in yourself and do that. Great question. Number 2, what is your creative process when planning an episode? Well, my guest episodes, I would say there's not much creativity to them because they kind of follow a general outline of like how we know each other, a little bit about their background. Sometimes that's rooted in education stories. Sometimes it's more about their childhood, like today. And then they always have a lesson and takeaways to share with us. When I'm doing a solo episode, a lot of times it's, something that I feel people who are listening to the podcast would like, that's aligned with taking the next step or growing personally or professionally or, dealing with limiting beliefs that are keeping us stuck. Or sometimes it's, I come across something either in another podcast or something I've read that I think would be helpful. I think coming up too, I'm going to be talking a little bit, as I transition out of the classroom, talking more about just like what that looks like in my position and what I'm feeling during that time. And I have had a couple more personal episodes. So those typically I will outline, again, kind of the same format of just like why I feel it's important, some sort of lesson, and then takeaway for you to take with you. Keep those questions coming. Again, can submit those on our website at lifesnextlessonplan.com or on our social media.
So I love that this is a nice segue into that, because what a lot of people don't recognize is that we are very similar to a computer where we're running on programs and autopilot, right? And I know that might be, what does that mean? Well, if you think about it, you don't have to really think about driving your car. When you get in the car, you just know how to do it. Why? That's a program that's running because you've done it enough times that your unconscious mind took that over and was like, oh, I'm going to free up brain space for her. So I'm just going to take over this as an autopilot thing. Same as tying your shoe, making your coffee, brushing your teeth, getting a shower. We do all those things exactly the same way every single time that we do them, right? There's reasons for that. So we are like computers, and the more that we repeat things or they are repeated in our reality, they become like programs. And so what this specific method that I am using is actually doing for people is starting to help them rewrite the program. So if you have a scarcity program that's running around money, and if we back up for a second, the way that you know that you have a scarcity program around money is essentially if you're not making the kind of money that you want, if you are not making, saving, or you have a relationship with money that feels hard, feels scarce, feels anxious, feels fearful often, that is a sign. And then there are many other signs that there is a program running behind the scenes on autopilot. And we need to rewrite that. We need to rewire it. And the reason that we need to do that is because during our programming years, from the time that we are born to about the age of 7 or so, we don't have an analytical mind. And so we're kind of like, they say children are like sponges. We're picking up on the things that are going on in our environment. And then that's how we think that we human. That's like how we think we're supposed to be in the world. I equate it to like having a GoPro attached to your head. When you come out of the womb, it's like you're watching the people in your environment. That's why they say the rich are, stay rich and the poor stay poor, because rich people are going to raise their children to have a wealthy mindset, have good habits and a good relationship with money. And the opposite is true as well for those like you and I, or, listeners who have also grown up that way. So this method, it's called the Align method. And I was in a meditation years ago, and I had completely transformed my life. And I'm sitting there, actually in this very office that I'm sitting here now on one of my benches, and I'm just meditating. And I said, I need a process that people are going to remember, that I can articulate very simply how I did what I did, and then how I can duplicate this for other people. So I asked the question very specifically, which ask and it is given, right? If we ask questions, we will receive the answer to them. And it was like the clouds parted and this method came through, and it spells out the word align, which I will explain. And as I went on to study this method and understand the mechanics behind it, I realized that it's, of course, backed by neuroscience, and neurolinguistic programming is built around these. Like, I'm just like, whoa, this is absolutely incredible. So again, ask and it is given. So the very first step in the Align method is step number 1, which is to cultivate what I call an awareness lens. So A is an awareness lens. Now, what does that mean? If you are trying to change your relationship with money, you want to make more money, you want to save more money, you want to build a legacy, you want to break generational cycles, you want to travel more, you want to have your own business, whatever it is, you have to cultivate an awareness lens as to the way that you are showing up around money right now that is not serving you. The truth is that the universe doesn't give us in life what it is that we want. It gives us a reflection of who it is that we are. It gives us a reflection of our dominant vibration around money. So if you're trying to make more money, but the only thoughts that are going on in your head are, I can't do this, I don't have enough money, this isn't enough, I'm not that kind of person, right? And you're hearing yourself saying these kinds of things on a consistent basis, or the patterns that you have around money where you're overspending, right? Or it's like you have that voice in your head that tells you, we don't really need that thing, but you're like, I want it anyway. Or every time a bill comes in the mail, you're freaking out and you're stressed out, or you open your bank account and you can't even breathe because you're about to you're hyperventilating, right? I mean, I'm being a little exaggerating a little bit there, but the point of this pillar is to start to notice and develop this lens of awareness. It's like becoming the gentle observer in your life. Start to notice the way that you're showing up around money. Maybe these are ways that your parents showed up, or your caregivers, or society has told you what to do. And if they are disempowering around money, then recognize that is essentially what you focus on growth. So if you're focusing on, it's never enough, I never have enough, this is never enough, I'm never going to make enough, what are you going to see a reflection of in your life? So one very simple way to do this is just to start to notice the way that you are speaking to yourself about money, about your capabilities around money, about worthiness, what you think you're worthy of, etc. And why I say the gentle observer is because you want to have a level of compassion with yourself in this, because this is all programmed early on in your life. So there's nothing that you're doing wrong. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just, this is the way that you were programmed. And so now we need to rewrite the program. So very gently becoming aware and developing this awareness lens of compassion to see, how am I showing up around money that is perpetuating the current cycles that I'm in, is the very first pillar of the Align method.
Already in just the first pillar, I'm hearing so many things already that we've talked about, definitely. And 100% what I went through in the last 9 months, going through this, unpacking where I get this, again, tendency to go negative or tendency to go scarcity. And so I like that you say, it's not our fault. This is how we were raised. This is the environment that we were used to. And that is years and years of rewiring your brain, right? And so that's not going to happen overnight. So I love that, be compassionate with yourself, be gentle. You're undoing years and years of neurological pathways in your brain, right? Okay. I think we can be ready for pillar 2, although I'm going to want to come back and just kind of study each one a little bit more. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So to your point, it's not your fault, but it is, as an adult, your responsibility. If you want to change your life, if you want your financial circumstances to be different, it is now your responsibility to take ownership of that. And if you're falling into a bit of that blaming or shaming or victim consciousness, which I was in the past, so there's no shame here, then that's also something to look at within pillar number 1. So I just want to say that, because a lot of times it's easy to kind of point the finger and, why was I raised this way? Why did my parents teach me any differently, right? But that can also be a block. Okay. So once you have awareness to the ways of being that you're showing up in that are perpetuating these financial cycles, we move into pillar number 2, which is where you now want to let them go, right? We don't actually want to bring these with us into the next phase of life. And so I help my clients create what is called a liberation toolbox, which is essentially different tools that you can use that will actually allow you, depending on the type of block that it is. So Again, we're uncovering a lot of we call them blocks, but I don't like to give a ton of power to them. They're just ways of being that you are showing up in pillar number one. So a lot of these could be limiting beliefs. They could be mental blocks. They could be stories that you're telling yourself. But some of them also could be blocks within the nervous system where the body doesn't feel safe holding on to more money than it's used to. And the reason that this is the case is because the nervous system is essentially tied to our survival. And so if something is not familiar to the nervous system, it's automatically going to be deemed as unsafe. So we all have a baseline that's created when we're in childhood or during those programming years. And if your baseline is set to scarcity and fear around money, and then you want to go out and try to make more of it, your biology will actually repel more abundance because it's not familiar to the nervous system. So we need to actually begin to expand the nervous system's capacity to hold on to money and to receive good things. So some of the blocks that we're releasing in pillar number two, it's a nuanced conversation in terms of how we do it because it depends on the type of block that it is. But let's go to a limiting belief. Let's say that you are telling yourself, you're doing all this gentle observing in your life and you're noticing, let's pick an easy one, that you're saying a lot of times, I don't feel like I'm good enough to make that kind of money, right? One of the easiest ways to let go of those mental blocks is to start just questioning them. Like, where did this come from? Whose voice is this? Is this my voice or is this someone else's voice? Or was I stamped at birth? Like when I came out of my mother's womb, I just had a stamp on my forehead. Like this one's not going to be good enough, right? To make more than 10K a month or whatever it is. It's silly once you start to really look at where did this come from? This isn't even, most of the time, these beliefs are not even ours. They are someone else's. And if you really get kind of focused with that, you should be able to pinpoint where that's come from. And it's a little easier to work through that on your own. Now, some of these blocks are, again, more deeply rooted within the nervous system, within the subconscious mind, etc. So there are times that we need to use a deeper approach to let them go. We need to kind of dig deeper and figure out at the root what is going on here. So that's the work that we do in pillar number two is we let those things go. And then once we have let go of the blocks, so again, this is the work that I do with my clients, that's where we can move into pillar number three, which is identify where you want to go instead. So let's say you have been showing up in a way where you've been telling yourself you're not good with money or you're avoiding your finances or whatever it is. You've discovered this pattern. You've started to let it go. Now you get to make the decisions, kind of like you have this blank canvas of this is actually how I really want to show up. I don't want to show up in those patterns anymore. And now that those are gone, I can see what's actually genuinely possible for me. And this usually happens again once we start releasing these old patterns, because it's just like if you were going to buy new bedroom furniture, you wouldn't bring that furniture in and put it on top of the old furniture. That'd be silly, right? We would take the furniture out and then we would put the new in. And that's the same thing. If we want to install a new program and you want to start magnetizing abundance on autopilot, people love that idea of like, I am a magnet to money. Well, if there is an old program that's running this, a repellent to money, you're not just going to be able to put a magnetic program over top of that. You got to uninstall the old one in order to bring the new one in. Mm-hmm. And so once we've done that, that's where we can start to say, okay, what kind of programs do I actually want to be running on? This is where we start to tap into that highest timeline of yours and start to look at what would be possible for you, kind of like the question my mentor asked me. And then once you have this clear vision of where it is that you want to go, that's when we move into pillar number 4, which is G, where we want to get into inspired action. So I call this creating your guided action plan. And this isn't just an action plan of like hamster wheeling it, where we're just taking action to take action. This is what is the most potent and powerful action steps that I can take based on where my soul wants me to be, based on this, what I call your inner GPS system, which is, okay, this is how I start to work smarter and not harder, is following my intuition, following the guidance that has always been here, but I haven't necessarily been able to hear it before because a lot of my thoughts were clouded by the old programs versus this new, more expansive way of thinking and following that guidance. This is usually the pillar where people start seeing the most success. So you start seeing money coming in, followers coming in, and this is really where most people start. Most people say, well, if I want to create a new reality, what do I need to do? But if you can imagine, you haven't done steps 1 through 3, you're still operating from an old program. So you're still, yes, you're taking action, but it's from scarcity instead of taking action from abundance and flow. So pillar number 4 is where we really start seeing people create that momentum. And then that's what brings us to pillar number 5, which is actually the most important part, which is to normalize and stabilize this level of success that you're at before you try to go on to the next. The reason being, as I mentioned before, the nervous system does not like things that are unfamiliar. It, especially when it's deeply rooted here in terms of our programs around money. And so if we try to, let's say we're going from $5,000 a month to $10,000 a month. And now you've gone through the Align method, you're at $10,000 a month, and then you're like, oh, well, I want to go from 10 to 20. You need to make sure that you normalize. So you make that 10K normal per month to the nervous system before you try to go on to the next one, because what will happen is sometimes people, most of the time, I've seen people self-sabotage, where it happens to lottery winners a lot, where, they receive a lump sum of money or they start getting into this next kind of social class that they aren't used to. And so their body's nervous. It's anxious about what this means. And is it going to disconnect me from my family? What's going to happen in my life? Do people just want things from me now? There's a whole new set of limiting beliefs and things that will come up. So typically what we end up doing is we just go back through the Align method. You've cleared out a bunch of stuff, and then it kind of becomes this upward spiral of now there's this process and method that you can go through. Because I don't like the saying, but they say new level, new devil. That's kind of the concept, is like when we get to the next place, there's going to be different things for us to unwind. And it's almost like peeling back these layers of an onion. So it's a really powerful process that will allow you to do that with each step that you go to. So then eventually you won't find yourself, upper limiting or finding ways to self-sabotage. You'll just feel really good at that 10K number. And then when you're ready to go to the next.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating about how you kind of have to repeat the cycle. And actually, this is funny, but the song More Money, More Problems just came into my head. But right, you're living a different life from what you're used to. And that whole idea of the nervous system, that's really fascinating. Wow, that is so generous of you to share those pillars. That is going to be so helpful for so many people. And it's funny, again, just how I can see myself like, yep, that's where I am, or that's where I was. And that's how I worked through it. Thank you again for sharing that. Is there anything else that you would like to, I know you've already given so much advice, but I know, like, if you had to boil down and you were talking to someone, one of my listeners who had gone through something similar to me, like they're on the fence. I just keep hearing all my colleagues who are my age in teaching say, I just have 3 more years. I just have 5 more years. I just have to hang on. They're hanging on for that carrot of like retirement, certain retirement benefits that they will get if they just hang there. And I couldn't do it. And I know I'm, again, leaving money or energy on the table, but I'm also watching some of these people shorten their lives by doing this, like becoming very unhealthy, both mentally and physically. Stress, I don't think people realize how it manifests. And, also the worst case scenario of like you hanging on and then you retire and then you get terminally ill. And I just went to a funeral a couple months ago, and not to say that that's what caused it, because it didn't, but it's just like her retirement was so short. And so something that you would say above and beyond, I know you've already given so much great advice, but I know there are so many people in that mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are. And I mean, I have been in this industry a long time watching people do the exact same thing that you just described. And so we're taught to go to school, then go to more school, then go to work for someone else for 30 years, give so much of our time and our energy and the experiences that we could be spending doing anything else, living our life, living our legacy, being with our families, to essentially, on average, die 3.6 years into retirement.
Ugh.
So we're giving our entire life away for 3.6 years of freedom, which is not actually freedom. I said that with quotations for those of you who can't see the video, because it's not freedom. Most of the people that I've worked with through the years are still struggling to make ends meet because, again, no one tells you that you're going to take these patterns with you no matter where you go. You cannot escape yourself. And this is what everyone, and again, I was this person too, where I was looking outside of me. Where do I need to move? What do I need to do? Who do I need to be with? What kind of like I was looking outside of myself, thinking that the answer was outside of me for many years until I realized that the very person that I need to be looking at is in the mirror. And so I have more than I can count stories of people who have worked their entire lives, given everything that they possibly could have to the companies that they were working for. And, you know, one person in particular, because we're talking about teachers here, she was single, never married. I mean, she gave her entire life to this job. She retired at the end of the school year. She had the summer to herself, just like she would have if she was working. And she died 2 years before the new school year started. So she actually never lived a moment of retirement and had amassed a 7-figure nest egg and left it to charity. If we wouldn't have enough time for me to tell you all of the stories where I watched that happen. And so a very long time ago, I made the decision that will never be me. And I understand that it's scary to go against the grain. I walked that path. I've had people telling me I was a terrible mother for quitting a multiple 6-figure job. You don't know anything other than this. How are you going to make it? How are you going to survive? You know, a lot of people have their own programming and their own thoughts about what's possible. But if you have this calling upon your life, that is really the thing that you need to follow, because at the end of the day, what do you have to lose more than your soul? Like, what do you have to lose more than your own fulfillment, than your own joy, than your own happiness? And yes, we have material things, but the way that I see it is, if everything is energy, which I believe that it is, and you are a vibrational match to your current circumstances. That's what that means. If you want to know where your dominant vibration is set, look around you. That's where it's set. If you want to increase it, you can. But at the end of the day, you're always going to be able to find a way back here. And that was the mindset that I operated from when I quit my job. I'm like, I know that I can make this kind of money, so I will find a way to do it again. And if I need to go back to work, I will. If I don't make this work, if I can't figure this out, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out then. I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But I don't want to be the person sitting back on my life at 80 years old saying, I never took the chance because I was too scared, or because Susie Q told me I shouldn't, or so-and-so told me I wasn't supposed to, or, you know, this is what society told me to do. I just was not going to be that kind of person, because I really know what it's like. And you will resonate with this. I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to not have 2 nickels to rub together. So I figured, well, if I made my way out of that once, I could do it again, even if it happened again. And it didn't. And so I don't believe that the universe is going to bring you to something if it's not there to bring you through it. If you're actually following your soul's path, you will find a way. The universe will provide. Sometimes it's going to feel like you have to jump and the parachute will appear, and it will. And if it doesn't right away, it will eventually. I just have so much evidence now of the people in my life and in the decisions in my own life that I am on the right path. And that's kind of maybe where some people need to start is if you don't have that evidence in your life, which I didn't a long time ago, start small. Maybe don't say, oh, I'm listening to Rachel and Rebekah and I'm just going to go ahead and quit my job right now. That may not be the right place to start, but maybe start with something small. Oh, I'm feeling this guidance. I'm feeling this pull to make a right on my way home from work instead of a left. Something that simple might lead you to somebody that you run into that you haven't seen in 20 years who has an opportunity and they're like, hey, just like you, if like this job wasn't listed. So starting with things that are small like that and just seeing, oh, okay, I follow my intuition and here's where it brought me. This was really cool. This was a fun experience. Starting to do that in a small way will give yourself evidence that it's possible to do in big ways too. And it's possible to trust it. And sometimes you do need to start small, but that's exactly what I did. And I really feel like at the end of the day, again, what do you have more to lose? Like we only get one shot at this life, or at least this version of you, depending on your thoughts around past lives and things like that. But you only get one shot at this one. So you may as well give it your all. You may as well go all in with the things that you believe are going to light you up and fulfill you, because what do you have to lose more than that?
Yeah, that is such great advice. And I'm sure, like you said, you have so many stories to back it up. And I have, in my experience, but oh, so good. So good. Thank you so much. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or any projects you're working on that you want to share with people before we go today?
Sure, absolutely. I just launched a brand new free training. So if you guys want to dive deeper into the pillars that I shared, this is an entire training on the 5 proven steps to make more money, save more money, so that you can finally live more. This isn't about just making money to make it. I believe that wealth is what creates choices. And if we want to create a new future, if you have children or you have nieces and nephews and you want to create something new in this world, it's but fortunately, it's money that does that. In this current economy and this current structure that we have, there's a lot of people who have a lot of money that are using it in ways that are not good. And so my goal is to bring the power back and the money back into the hands of those of us who are going to use it for good. So if you want to learn how to do that and you really want to take this route seriously and start diving into this work, I do have a brand new free training on this. And again, you can dive deeper into it. It's completely free. And we go way deeper into these pillars, how to start using them in your own life and how to start rewiring your own nervous system around wealth so you can expand that capacity to receive instead of being stuck in the old programs that maybe have been running for years or decades.
Awesome. So we'll put the link. I'm assuming a link where people can sign up. I would like to look into that myself as well. I'll put all of that, your website, like I said, your socials, and where they can find this program. Thank you so much for all your time and wisdom today. I know it helped me when I listened to you the first time, helped me even more today. And odd as it sounds, I'll probably listen to this multiple times as I'm going through this journey, because like you said, my nervous system is it's programmed to 29 years of bells telling me what to do, right? And so I'm going to need to work through some of that as well. So thank you again for all your time and being with us today.
You're sure welcome. Thank you so much again for having me.
The first time I heard Rebekah speak, it was such a powerful conversation for me, and so I am hoping sharing her with you, you're having the same experience. Her journey is proof that no matter where you start, you can change your relationship with money, create lasting wealth, and break generational cycles. Her story is also a reminder that transformation doesn't come from working harder necessarily. It comes from working smarter by aligning your mindset, energy, and goals. If today's episode resonated with you, take that as your sign. The next level of your life is waiting, and it starts with awareness and one bold step forward. To connect with Rebekah, learn more about her coaching, or dive deeper into the Align method, you can visit her website at risewithrebekah.com and follow her Instagram at risewithrebekah. If you haven't yet, be sure to follow Life's Next Lesson Plan wherever you listen to podcasts and join our community on Instagram and our Live and Learn Patreon for bonus content, behind-the-scenes insights, and your own next lesson plan. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, your next chapter is yours to write.